Dark space was silent. Only the broken pieces of a burning ship moved slowly across the stars. Among the wreckage, a small human vessel drifted closer, its radar beeping softly. Captain Ray Carter leaned forward in his seat. A faint signal blinked on his screen, a distress beacon. Weak. Alien. He hesitated for a second, then whispered to himself, "Whoever you are, hold on." He adjusted his flight path and entered the field of debris. Sparks and smoke floated in zero gravity, broken metal, drifting bodies, silence. Then, there, a cry, a voice too soft for human ears, but the translator caught it. "Help! Me!" Ray moved through the wreck with his flashlight. His heart raced. He found her trapped under a fallen beam, tall, silver-skinned, with glowing blue eyes. Her uniform had strange symbols, royal ones. She wasn't just any alien. She was someone important. Ray grunted, lifting the beam off her with all his strength. She gasped for air, eyes full of confusion and pain. "It's okay," he said. "I got you." He carried her through the smoke, wrapping his arm around her shoulder. But as soon as his hand touched her skin, she screamed, "Don't touch me, human!" Her voice echoed through the corridor like thunder. Ray froze, surprised. She pushed him away, her eyes burning with hate. "Your kind is filthy! How dare you lay hands on me!" Ray looked at her, confused but calm. "You were dying," he said softly. "I don't care," she spat. "I would rather die than be touched by a human." For a moment, he almost left her there, but he didn't. He sighed, picked her up again despite her protests, and carried her to his ship. Minutes later, they were flying away from the wreck. She sat in silence, arms crossed, glaring at him like he was an insect. Ray focused on the controls, ignoring her sharp words. "You humans, always trying to play hero," she muttered. Ray smirked sly. "And you aliens, always making it difficult." She turned away, refusing to look at him. The stars outside flickered through the cockpit glass, reflecting on her pale face. Her name, she finally said, was Lyara of House Velnar. Ray nodded. "Nice to meet you, Lyara. You're safe now." "Safe," she repeated coldly. "With a human? Never." Silence filled the cabin. Only the hum of the engines and the low beeps of the scanner broke it. But then something blinked red on the radar. Ray frowned. "That's not good." He zoomed in. A cluster of signals, fast-moving, approaching from the wreck's direction. "Are they your people?" he asked. Lyara glanced at the screen. Her face turned pale. "No, they're hunters." Ray looked at her. "Hunters?" She nodded slowly. "They're mercenaries. They want me alive." Ray's grip on the controls tightened. "Then I guess we'd better not let them find you." Lyara hesitated. For the first time, her voice trembled. "Why are you helping me, human? You know nothing about me." Ray's eyes stayed on the stars ahead. "I don't need to know," he said. "You called for help. That's enough." She looked at him, silent now. Her pride fought against confusion. No one from her world would have done this for a stranger, especially not for a lesser species. Hours passed. Ray's ship glided through the blackness, running on stealth mode. Lyara sat quietly, staring out the window. In the glass, she saw her reflection, and the human pilot beside her. Her mind whispered cruel words. "He's beneath you. He's nothing." But another voice, deep inside, asked, "Then why did he save me?" She shook the thought away. "Don't think too much," she whispered to herself. Ray glanced at her. "You say something?" "Nothing." Suddenly, a faint beep echoed from her wristband, a small, hidden device pulsing blue light. Ray noticed it instantly. "What's that?" Lyara hid, her hand behind her back. "Nothing you need to worry about." Ray frowned. "It's transmitting." Her eyes widened. "What?" He pointed at the scanner. "You just sent out a signal. A beacon." Her face drained of color. No, that can't be." Ray turned the ship sharply. "They'll find us now." The ship's warning lights began to flash. Liara's heart raced. She stared at the blinking radar, a red swarm of dots closing in. She whispered, "They're here." Ray's voice turned firm. "Then hold on tight, Princess. We're not done yet." He pushed the throttle, and the ship roared into darkness. Outside, the hunters followed, bright lights chasing through endless black space. Inside, Lyara's hands trembled. She didn't want to admit it, but for the first time, she was scared. And somehow, she trusted the human who had touched her. Before we continue this story, if you're enjoying it so far and want to see what happens next between Lyara and Captain Ray, make sure to subscribe to this channel. More amazing HFY Sci-Fi stories are waiting for you. Now, let's see if they can escape the hunters. Darkness filled the small cabin. Only the red warning lights flickered against the metal walls, painting everything in shades of danger. Lyara sat frozen, her blue eyes locked on the radar. Dots, dozens of them, closing in fast. Captain Ray's hands moved quickly over the controls, his voice calm but tense. "They've locked onto us. Whoever they are, they're fast." Liara's throat tightened. "They're not soldiers," she said quietly. "They're trackers, bounty hunters, paid to bring me back." "Alive?" Ray asked, without looking away. She nodded slowly. "Alive, for the reward. Then they will hand me to my enemies." Ray exhaled sharply. "Perfect. Just what I needed. Space pirates with bad manners." The ship shook violently as a plasma shot hit the tail. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Ray gritted his teeth. "Hang on." He pulled the ship into a steep dive through a dense asteroid belt. The stars vanished, hid as massive gray stones surrounded them. Each rock spun slowly, some the size of cities, others as small as a car. Lyara clung to the seat, fear breaking through her pride. "Are you insane? You'll kill us both." Ray gave a small grin. "Maybe, but it's better than letting them do it." The ship swerved left, scraping past a tumbling asteroid. The sound of metal grinding against stone filled the cabin. Outside, laser fire streaked between the rocks, beautiful, deadly lines of light. Lyara turned to him, voice trembling. "You don't understand who they work for. They're hired by the Dominion." Ray frowned. "The Dominion?" She nodded. "They destroyed my people's ships. They want my house erased from history." She looked down. "And now they know where I am. Because of me." Ray didn't reply. His focus stayed on the scanners, searching for a way out. But in his chest, anger grew. Not at her, but at whoever wanted her dead. He spoke quietly. "You're not the first person I've pulled out of a burning wreck. But I'll make sure you're not the last either." Lyara stared at him. Something in his tone, steady, determined, made her heartbeat slow down. No fear, no hesitation. Just that human stubbornness she'd heard about in her old lessons. The kind her people mocked as primitive courage. Minutes passed. The hunters' ships followed like wolves, their engines glowing red in the dark. Ray flew deeper into the belt, twisting through narrow paths between drifting rocks, but the radar still flashed red. "They're gaining," Lyara whispered. Ray grinned. "Yeah, let's see if they can dance." He pressed a button. A sudden burst of blue light erupted from the ship's rear, releasing fragments of mining debris that spun out behind them. Two of the hunter ships collided instantly, exploding in silence. Lyara gasped. "You did that on purpose?" Ray nodded. "Asteroid mining taught. Rick, old habit." But before she could reply, a powerful shockwave hit them from behind. The ship spun wildly. Ray cursed, gripping the controls. "They hit our stabilizer." The hull screamed as it scraped another asteroid. Panels fell from the ceiling. Liara's seatbelt snapped, throwing her forward, and Ray caught her by the arm. For a second, time stopped. Her glowing eyes met his human ones. The same hand she once called filthy was now the only thing keeping her alive. He pulled her close, locking one arm around her waist. "Stay with me," he said through gritted teeth. She didn't answer, just held on tighter. After a rough turn, Ray guided the ship into a hollow crater carved into a huge asteroid. The engines roared, then went silent. He shut everything down, lights, systems, even life support, leaving only darkness. Lyara looked around. "Why did you stop? They'll find us." "Not if we make them think we're dead," Ray whispered. He pointed at the radar. "Watch." Outside, the hunters scanned the belt, their sensors sweeping over the asteroids. But with the human ship cold and quiet, it blended into the rocks like a ghost. For 10 long minutes, they waited in silence. The only sound was Liara's slow breathing. She could feel her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Finally, the radar cleared. The red dots began to fade. Ray leaned back and exhaled. "They're gone." Lyara stared at him in disbelief. "You risked everything. For me?" Ray shrugged. "Wouldn't be the first bad decision I've made." For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. It disappeared quickly, but Ray noticed. Then her voice softened, uncertain. "You saved me twice, human. Why?" Ray turned toward her. The dim emergency light flickered on his face. "Because no one else did." Lyara looked away, her chest tight. She wanted to hate him. She was supposed to hate him. But something inside her was changing. Hours later, while Ray slept in the pilot chair, Lyara quietly moved through the cabin. She found a small locker, weapons, tools, and an old data pad glowing with soft blue light. Curiosity overcame her. She tapped the screen. It opened to a series of logs, video recordings. Ray's voice spoke through them. "Rescue attempt number 47. Failed again. Lost 2 colonists. I should have been faster. Another distress signal. Doesn't matter the species. If someone needs help, I go. I keep wondering, why do they always hate us first?" Lyara's eyes glistened as she listened. Each log showed a man who had risked everything for people who didn't even like his kind. For a long time, she sat there, silent. Then she whispered to herself, "Maybe humans aren't as low as we were taught." She turned off the screen and looked at him, asleep, bruised, exhausted. Something stirred inside her, guilt, and something else she didn't want to name. Then the radar blinked again. 1 dot, just one. Slowly approaching. Lyara's blood turned cold. "They're not gone," she breathed. She rushed to Ray and shook him awake. "Ray, wake up! They found us again!" His eyes opened instantly. He looked at the radar, then out the window. In the far distance, a single hunter ship glowed in the dark, searching, hunting, waiting. Ray smirked tiredly. "Guess they missed us too much." He stood, cracked his neck, and took the controls again. "All right, Princess, round 2. Lyara's hands clenched on the seat's edge. But this time, she didn't insult him. She didn't scream. She just whispered, almost to herself, "Don't die, human." The ship engines flared once more, and the chase began again, into the endless black. The stars vanished behind them. Only darkness remained. The ship shook, groaning like a wounded animal as Captain Ray forced it deeper into the shadow of the asteroid field. Outside, chunks of rock drifted like sleeping giants, their surfaces glowing faintly from the light of distant suns. Lyara sat still, clutching the sides of her seat. Her eyes, usually cold and proud, were now filled with something unfamiliar: fear. Ray's voice cut through the silence. "Hold tight. If one of those rocks hits us, it's over." She swallowed hard. "This is suicide." Ray smirked. "Only if you look down." A massive asteroid passed just meters beneath them, its gravity tugging at the ship. The panels rattled, alarms beeped, and Ray's knuckles turned white around the controls. "Can't you fly smoother?" Lyara shouted over the noise. "Sure," Ray said, "if you'd like to die slower." Another impact. Something hit their tail. Sparks exploded behind them. Lyara gasped, her body jerking forward as the ship tilted. Ray slammed a button. A pulse of energy flared behind them, scattering fragments and confusing the sensors of the lone hunter ship still chasing. "Ha! Lost him," Ray said with a grin. But his smile vanished when the radar beeped again. The dot split into 3. Liara's eyes widened. 3 ships now? How is that possible? Ray leaned closer to the screen. "They must have called backup. Smart bastards." He took a deep breath. "All right, we're out of time." Lyara frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we're going through the storm." Before she could protest, he turned the ship sharply toward a glowing field at the edge of the asteroid cluster. Through the glass, waves of lightning danced across a massive cloud of ionized gas, beautiful and terrifying. A plasma storm. Liara's heart nearly stopped. "That storm will destroy us!" Ray just smiled faintly. "Maybe, but it'll destroy their sensors too. That's the point." The ship dived in. The moment they entered, chaos swallowed them whole. Electric arcs crawled over the hull, turning everything bright white for seconds at a time. The instruments went wild, numbers flashing, alarms screaming. Lyara grabbed Ray's arm. "You'll fry the ship!" He didn't answer. His jaw was set, eyes fixed on the glowing void outside. Then, suddenly, a deafening crack. Lightning struck them head-on. The ship spun violently. Gravity vanished. Lyara floated for a moment before slamming into the ceiling. "Ray!" she screamed. He was trying to stabilize the ship, his hand bleeding from the shattered control panel. "Hang on!" he yelled back. The engines sputtered, then went silent. For a heartbeat, all sound disappeared. Only the soft hum of static filled the air. The lights flickered weakly, revealing Lyara floating near the cockpit, weightless. Her long silver hair drifted like smoke. Ray groaned and unbuckled himself. He floated toward her. "You okay?" She blinked, dazed. I think so." He checked the console. "Engines are down. We're dead in the water." She turned to him, her voice trembling. "Can't you fix it?" Ray sighed. "Maybe, but not while we're floating through lightning." They exchanged a long look. Two strangers, trapped in a broken ship, surrounded by storms that could erase them from existence. Liara's voice was soft now. "You risked your life again. For me." Ray gave a tired smile. "Don't get used to it." She actually laughed, a sound so gentle it surprised even her, but it faded quickly when she saw the dark bruise spreading across his arm. "You're hurt," she said. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing," she replied sharply. "You humans act like you're made of stone." He chuckled. "We're not made of stone. We're just bad at giving up." Hours passed in silence. Ray worked with his tools, sparks flickering from the console. Liara watched quietly, guilt pressing on her chest like weight. Finally, she whispered, "Those hunters, they came because of me. You could have left me there." Ray didn't look up. "Yeah, I could have." "Then why didn't you?" He set down his tool, looked at her, and said simply, "Because you were screaming for help." Her lips parted slightly. No one had ever answered her that way. No politics, no rank, no reason, just humanity. She looked down at her silver hands, remembering how he had slapped him, insulted him, called him unclean. Now those same hands trembled as she whispered, "I was wrong about you." Ray smiled faintly without looking up. "I get that a lot." Suddenly, a sharp noise cut through the silence. A sensor, small, blinking, lit up near the console. Ray frowned. "That's not from the ship." Lyara froze. "That's mine." She reached for her arm, but it was too late. The small crystal embedded in her bracelet blinked rapidly, bright, rhythmic. "A royal tracker," Ray muttered. "Of course." He ripped it off her wrist, tossing it into a metal compartment and slamming it shut. Liara's voice shook. "They'll find that signal. They always do." Ray stared out the window into the storm. "Then we better not be here when they arrive." He turned a lever and rerouted power from life support to engines. The lights dimmed until only the soft glow of lightning illuminated their faces. The ship trembled, then groaned as the engines sputtered back to life, weak but alive. Liara's eyes widened. "You're stealing power from air systems." Ray grinned. "Yeah, so don't waste your breath." She almost laughed again, but fear caught her throat. Outside, through the electric haze, dark shapes were forming, hunter ships, cutting through the storm. "They found us," she whispered. Ray gripped the controls. "Let them come." The storm flashed brighter than ever, bolts of light dancing between ships. One of the hunters exploded instantly, consumed by lightning. Ray twisted the controls, weaving between bolts of plasma. "Come on, baby," he muttered to the ship. "Hold together." Liara stared at him in disbelief. This human, flying into death itself, with a smile on his face. And something inside her shifted again. A spark she didn't understand. Something that scared her more than the storm itself. The last bolt hit just behind them, propelling them out of the storm's edge. The ship burst through into open space, trailing smoke, but alive. Ray laughed breathlessly. "Still here?" Liara turned toward him. "You're insane." "Maybe," he said with a grin. "But we're not dead." Her expression softened. For the first time since the crash, she looked at him not as a creature below her, but as someone worth looking at. But before either of them could speak, the radar beeped again. A larger signal this time. Much larger. Ray's smile faded. Liara's voice trembled. "That's not a hunter ship." Ray's eyes narrowed at the screen. "No," he said quietly. "That's a warship." And as the massive shadow of the Dominion flagship appeared in the distance, its cannons glowing, Ray whispered, "Looks like your people really don't like being told no." The warship loomed ahead like a sleeping monster. Its black surface absorbed the starlight, and the glowing blue lines across its hull pulsed like veins. Even from miles away, the scale of it made Ray's small ship look like a speck of dust drifting toward a storm. Ray muttered under his breath, "That's not a patrol ship. That's a full Dominion cruiser." Lyara's voice trembled. "They found me." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the console. "That ship, it belongs to House Krell. They're sworn enemies of my family." Ray's jaw tightened. "And they're here to finish the job." He cut the engines and dimmed the lights again. But it was too late. A blinding beam of light shot out from the cruiser's side, locking onto them like a finger of judgment. Liara's breath hitched. "A graviton snare!" Ray's ship jerked violently as the beam pulled them toward the warship. "Brace yourself!" Ray shouted. The sound of twisting metal filled the cabin. Every alarm screamed. The ship rattled as if it would tear apart. Lyara gripped Ray's arm tightly, not out of pride, not out of command, but pure fear. "Can't you break free?" she yelled. "I'm trying!" Ray shouted, punching buttons, rerouting power. But nothing worked. The Dominion cruiser dragged them closer, inch by inch. Its hangar doors opened wide, a glowing mouth waiting to swallow them whole. The smaller ship slammed down hard onto the hangar floor. Sparks scattered everywhere. Ray's head hit the console, and darkness took him for a few seconds. When he opened his eyes, armed soldiers surrounded them. Tall, armored, faceless, Dominion troopers. "Step out of the vessel," one commanded through a metallic voice. Lyara froze. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. Ray glanced at her, blood dripping from his temple. "Play along," he whispered. They stepped out slowly. The troopers aimed their weapons at Ray instantly. One of them scanned Lyara and spoke into his comm. "We found her, Princess Lyara of House Velnar. Confirmed." Lyara lifted her chin, trying to sound strong. "You have no right to hold me. The Dominion has violated every treaty." A voice interrupted her, calm and cold. "Oh, Princess, your treaties ended when your house fell." A tall figure approached, wearing a long black coat, his eyes glowing faintly red. He moved like someone who owned everything he saw. "Commander Vrax," Lyara whispered, her voice filled with dread. Ray frowned. "I'm guessing he's not a friend." She shook her head slowly. "He's the one who destroyed my fleet." Vrax smiled thinly. "So, the lost heir of Velnar finally returns, and with a human pet." Liara's fists clenched, but Ray stepped forward, his tone sharp. "I'm no one's pet." Vrax chuckled darkly. "Brave words, human. You'll learn soon enough what bravery costs." He turned to his soldiers. "Take them both to holding. The princess goes to interrogation. The human to the labs." Ray's stomach turned. He'd heard stories, what the Dominion did to prisoners. He took a small step toward Lyara, whispering, "Stay quiet, don't let them break you." Before she could reply, the guards struck him with an electric baton. His body collapsed. Lyara screamed his name, but they pulled her away. Cold metal walls surrounded them now. Lyara sat on the floor of her cell, wrists bound by glowing cuffs that pressed her abilities. The light flickered above her. She could hear faint mechanical sounds, screams, drills, the hum of energy weapons. In the distance, she thought she heard a familiar voice, Ray's, shouting, defiant, even in pain. Her heart clenched. For the first time, she realized something terrifying. She didn't want to lose him. In the lab chamber, Ray hung from restraints, bruised and bleeding. A Dominion scientist in a silver suit studied him like a strange animal. Fascinating, the scientist murmured. Human physiology, primitive yet resilient. His neural activity is unusually strong. Ray spat blood on the floor. Glad to know I'm interesting. The scientist didn't look amused. Your kind shouldn't exist beyond your own dirt planet. Yet here you are, saving princesses. Ray smiled through the pain. Guess we didn't get the memo. The scientist pressed a button, and pain shot through Ray's veins, electricity crawling under his skin. He bit his lip, refusing to scream. Where did you find her? The scientist asked coldly. Ray glared back. Wouldn't you like to know? The scientist increased the voltage. Answer me. Ray's vision blurred, but he stayed silent. Finally, the scientist turned the machine off and sighed. No matter, we'll take what we need from your mind. He prepared a neural extraction device, sharp and silver. But before it could touch Ray's head, an explosion shook the entire ship. The lights flickered red, sirens screamed. The scientist stumbled. What in the void? The door burst open. A Dominion guard flew backward, thrown by a blast of energy. Lyara stood there, eyes glowing bright blue, her cuffs broken, her fury blazing like fire. Touch him again, she hissed, and you'll never touch anything again. The scientist froze. Ray stared at her, dazed but smiling weakly. Took you long enough? She smirked faint. You humans talk too much. She blasted the control panel, freeing him. He collapsed forward, and she caught him, just like he had once caught her. For a moment, their eyes met in the red emergency light, and everything slowed. Can you walk? She asked. Barely. Then hold on. She wrapped his arm over her shoulders and half carried him out. Guards rushed in, but Lyara's powers flared, bolts of blue energy ripping through metal. The hallway filled with smoke and light. Ray coughed, still smiling. Remind me not to make you angry. Too late for that, she said, her voice trembling between anger and fear. They reached the hangar. Alarms blared, ships powered up. Lyara looked at Ray. We can't escape like this. We need a distraction. Ray grinned weakly. You thinking what I'm thinking? She frowned. Probably not. Humans are reckless. He pointed toward the warship's power core, glowing deep blue through a glass wall. That's the main reactor. If we blow it, they'll be too busy running to chase us. Lyara stared at him. You'd destroy a Dominion cruiser just to escape? He smirked. Why not? You already called me insane. She couldn't help but smile back. Then let's be insane together. They fought their way through corridors filled with smoke and gunfire. Lyara shielded them with shimmering energy while Ray shot through the chaos, limping but determined. Every corner they turned, every enemy that fell, the bond between them grew stronger, forged in fire and fear. Finally, they reached the reactor chamber. Lyara placed her hands on the core, her energy surging. It'll overload in 60 seconds, she said breathlessly. Ray nodded. Then let's move. As they ran toward the hangar, the warship began to quake. Flames erupted from the walls. The sound of metal tearing echoed through the corridors. They reached a small Dominion fighter, climbed inside, and launched. Behind them, the warship exploded, a blinding ball of blue fire lighting the endless black. Ray looked at the burning wreck behind him, then at her. You just started a war. Lyara's voice was quiet. No, I just ended one. But in her heart, she knew it wasn't over. Vrax had survived, and he would come for them both. As the two figures drifted into the darkness of space, one human, one alien princess, their fates were now forever tangled. The explosion faded behind them. Only the echoes of destruction remained, glowing faintly in the void. Ray's hands trembled on the controls. Every warning light on the dashboard was red. Engines. Gone. Shields. Gone, he muttered, trying to stay awake. Lyara looked back through the viewport, where the Dominion cruiser once was, now only drifting fragments burned silently in space. Her chest tightened. She'd destroyed her enemy's ship, but she'd also destroyed everything she ever knew. Her home, her title, her bloodline, gone in that flash of blue light. Ray coughed, blood on his lip. We did it. She looked at him sharply. You're bleeding. He smiled faintly. Yeah, but you're still alive, so I'll call that a win. The ship suddenly lurched. A warning alarm screamed. Lyara's eyes darted to the screen. We're falling into gravity pull. Ray's eyes widened. Of what? She looked at the scanner. A moon. Lifeless. Maybe unstable. Ray gripped the yoke. Then that's where we're going. The descent was chaos. The fighter spun, flames licking its wings. The surface of the moon grew larger and larger, cracked, silver, covered in lightning storms that danced across the sky. Lyara held onto Ray's arm. Do something! I'm trying, he yelled, but this thing's flying like a brick with wings. They hit atmosphere. The world turned white. Then, impact. The sound of tearing metal echoed through the barren valley. The ship slid across black sand, leaving a glowing trail behind. Then, silence. Smoke filled the cockpit. Lyara coughed and forced the door open. Grey light poured in, strange and dim. Above them, clouds twisted in spirals, glowing faintly purple from electric storms. She stepped out first, helping Ray limp behind her. The ground beneath them was dry and cold, like stone dust. There was no wind, no sound, only the hum of distant thunder. Ray looked around and exhaled. Looks like home. Just needs a coffee shop. She gave him a look. Humans joke even when dying? Especially when dying, he said with a grin. Despite herself, she smiled a little. They set up a small shelter near the wreck using the ship's remains. Ray patched his arm with Medjol while Lyara examined the horizon. It's quiet, she said softly. Too quiet, he replied, half joking. But even his smile faded when a faint sound echoed from beyond the ridge. Not wind, not thunder, something else. Lyara turned sharply. Did you hear that? Ray nodded slowly. Yeah, and I'm guessing that's not a welcome party. They grabbed what little gear remained. A plasma pistol, a half-dead scanner, and a flashlight. As they climbed the ridge, the sound grew clearer. Like whispering. Voices that weren't human, faint, layered, as if the air itself remembered pain. Lyara's voice was a whisper. This place, it's not natural. Ray looked at the scanner. No life signs, but the ground's reading strange energy patterns. Lightning flashed again, illuminating ancient ruins scattered across the valley. Broken towers, stone pillars covered in alien markings. In the center stood a single dark spire, humming faintly with blue light. Lyara's breath caught. That's impossible. What? Ray asked. That symbol, it belongs to the first ones, the oldest race in our galaxy. They disappeared thousands of years ago. Ray raised an eyebrow. Well, looks like they forgot to lock the door. They stepped closer. The spire pulsed, and faint lights rippled under their feet like veins awakening. The air felt heavier, charged. Suddenly, Lyara stumbled. Her eyes flashed, not with her own light, but with something else. Ancient, foreign. Yara? Ray caught her before she fell. She whispered faintly, her voice distant, like someone else's. They were here. The Watchers. Guardians of the Core. Ray frowned. You're scaring me, Princess. Her hands trembled. This planet, it's not dead. It's remembering. Then the ground cracked open behind them. A column of light shot upward, and from it rose tall, ghost-like figures, translucent, armored in light. They had no faces, only burning blue eyes. Ray raised his weapon instinctively. What the hell are those? Liara's voice was shaking. Echoes. The first one's memories. They defend the past. One of the glowing figures turned its gaze toward them. Its voice echoed inside their heads. You are trespassers. Ray aimed the pistol. We're just passing through. You carry the blood of conflict, the voice said. You bring war to sacred ground. Lyara stepped forward, trembling. I didn't mean... The ground shook. Blue fire erupted from the spire, encircling them both. Ray grabbed her hand. Run! They sprinted through the ruins as bolts of energy shot past them. One hit the ground inches away, exploding in a wave of blue dust. Ray stumbled, but kept going, dragging Lyara with him. They ducked behind a fallen pillar. He was breathing hard, sweat dripping down his neck. Any idea how to stop ghost soldiers? He asked. Lyara shook her head. They're not real. They're fragments of power. They'll vanish once the spire resets. How long does that take? Hours, maybe days. Ray sighed. Great. They hid in the ruins for what felt like hours. Outside, the ghostly figures drifted slowly, guarding the valley. Ray leaned against the stone, his eyes half closed. Lyara looked at him quietly. For the first time, she saw beyond the scars, beyond the human smell she once despised. He was fragile, yet he was still fighting. Why do you do it? She asked, softly. He opened one eye. Do what? Risk yourself for people who hate you. He smiled tiredly. Because someone has to. She stared at him, her voice almost a whisper. You're strange, human. I get that a lot. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. Ray frowned. Please tell me that's the spire resetting. Lyara shook her head. No, that's coming from the wreck. They ran back to their camp. The fighter's control panel flickered on, unpowered, yet glowing. A transmission played through static. Vrax's voice. Did you think you could run forever, Princess? The Dominion never forgets. We are coming. Liara's face went pale. Ray stared at her. He's alive. She nodded slowly. And he knows where we are. The storm clouds above began to twist again, lightning flashing in unnatural patterns. Somewhere deep below the surface, the ancient ruins stirred, reacting to the signal. Ray whispered, We woke something up. Lyara turned toward the horizon, her eyes glowing faintly again. Not something, she said softly. Someone. The storm above the moon rumbled like the growl of an awakening beast. Purple lightning twisted through the clouds, lighting up the shattered ruins with flashes that felt almost alive. Each bolt seemed to strike in rhythm, not random, but deliberate, like a heartbeat. Ray stood near the wrecked fighter, his pistol drawn, watching the horizon pulse with strange light. Lyara stood beside the spire, her silver hair floating slightly as if pulled by invisible wind. Her voice was barely a whisper. "It's not weather. It's a signal." Ray frowned. From what? Or from who? Before she could answer, the ground shuddered. Blue cracks spread outward from the base of the spire, crawling across the valley like veins. The ghostly figures they had seen before began to flicker, fading and reforming. And then, a voice filled the air. It wasn't coming from one direction. It came from everywhere. Calm, echoing, deep enough to shake bone. Designation confirmed. Royal signature detected. Lyara froze. That voice! Raylo oaked at her. "It knows you." The voice continued, cold and ancient. "Lyara of House Velnar. Bloodline traced, access granted. Welcome, heir of the first." Light burst from the spire, enveloping her completely. Ray stepped back, shielding his eyes. "Lyara!" She floated upward, her body surrounded by arcs of blue energy, her eyes glowing like twin stars. The ground trembled harder now, ruins lifting and rearranging themselves into patterns. "Put me down!" she cried out. But the voice ignored her. "You are the key. The line of Velnar returns to command the core." Ray tried to run forward, but the air shimmered like glass, throwing him backward. He hit the ground hard, the breath leaving his chest. "Lyara!" he yelled again, struggling to his feet. The energy around her grew brighter. Symbols began appearing across her skin, glowing lines, ancient and alien. Her voice cracked. "Ray, I can feel it. It's inside me. Something's waking up." Ray looked toward the fighter, its systems flickering on again, this time without power. The wrecked screens showed lines of alien text scrolling too fast to read. Then the voice spoke again, louder now, shaking the ruins. "The core awakens. Dominion presence detected. Primary defense protocol. Extinction." Ray's blood ran cold. "Extinction? Of what?" Lyara gasped, gripping her head. "They think the Dominion fleet is a threat to the core. They'll destroy everything." "Can you stop it?" Ray shouted. She closed her eyes, struggling against the energy pulling her upward. "I'm trying, but it's inside my mind. It's reading my memories." Ray ran toward her again, even as lightning cracked around them. The ground split open, revealing a massive glowing structure buried beneath the surface. A machine heart, the size of a mountain. It pulsed in rhythm with Lyara's heartbeat. Ray squinted through the light. "What the hell is this thing?" Her voice echoed faintly. "It's the first core, the last living remnant of the oldest civilization. It's a weapon." Ray's stomach dropped. "A weapon?" She nodded weakly. "They built it to protect the galaxy. But it was never meant to wake again." The ground shook violently. Above them, the storm clouds parted, revealing enormous Dominion ships descending through the atmosphere. Vrax's fleet. Lyara's eyes shot open, terror flashing in them. "He's here!" The voice of the AI thundered once more. "Enemy presence confirmed. Initiating planetary defense sequence." Pillars of blue light shot up from the ground, striking the Dominion ships like spears. Explosions lit the sky. Whole warships disintegrated in seconds. Ray shielded his eyes. "You said it would destroy everything. How do we stop it?" Lyara screamed. "I'm trying to override it. but it's using me as the control source. If I fail, it'll erase everything it detects as hostile life." Ray looked at her, floating, trembling, her veins glowing with blue fire. She was burning up from the inside out. He did the only thing his instinct told him. He ran into the storm. "Ray, no!" she cried out. He fought through the energy waves, every step like walking through liquid lightning. His skin burned, his muscles screamed, but he kept going. When he reached her, he grabbed her hand. For a moment, everything went silent. Then their connection sent a shockwave of light through the air. Ray's mind flooded with visions. Stars being born, planets destroyed, civilizations rising and falling in seconds. He saw Lyara's ancestors, proud, shining, and cold. And then he saw her, lost, trapped between legacy and survival. He gritted his teeth and shouted through the storm, "You're not alone in this! You don't have to fight it by yourself!" Her eyes widened. "You'll die if you stay here!" "Then we die together!" he shouted. For a heartbeat, the AI hesitated. The storm flickered. The voice returned, slightly softer. "Human presence detected. Genetic anomaly. Compatible with royal signature." Ray's veins glowed now too, faint lines of blue tracing up his arms. Lyara gasped. "It's bonding to you." Ray winced in pain. "Feels like the worst handshake ever." "New pattern established," the voice said. "Dual control recognized. Balance restored." The light around them dimmed. The shaking slowed. The storm above began to fade. Lyara collapsed into Ray's arms, trembling but alive. The markings on her skin slowly faded. Ray looked down at her, panting. "Did we stop it?" She nodded weakly. "For now." The AI's voice returned, faint and distant. "Balance achieved. Core Guardians reactivated. Awaiting command." Lyara looked up at the sky, the burning remains of Dominion ships falling like comets. "Ray, it listened to us." He managed a small, exhausted smile. "Guess it just needed a little teamwork." But their relief didn't last. A sharp beeping came from Ray's wrist device, a distress signal from orbit. He frowned. "What now?" Lyara's face turned pale. "That signal, it's Vrax!" The ground trembled again, this time from above. A massive shadow crossed the moon's surface, a ship larger than anything they'd seen before. It wasn't Dominion. It was ancient. The AI's tone turned cold. "Primary overseer vessel detected. Warning, control conflict imminent." Ray looked at Lyara, his voice low. "If that thing's older than this core," she finished the thought quietly, "then it's the real master." The sky split open with light as the colossal ship descended. And in that blinding glow, a new voice spoke, calm, godlike, final. "Lyara of Velnar, you were never meant to wake the core." The air froze. Ray's heart stopped. Lyara whispered, almost to herself, "That voice, it's my mother." The sky above the moon split like torn fabric. A blinding white light poured down, washing the ruins in ghostly brilliance. The colossal ship that descended from the storm was not made of metal. It was made of light and memory, shifting like a dream, solid 1 second, transparent the next. It hummed with a sound that was not just heard, it was felt. Every heartbeat, every breath vibrated to its rhythm. Ray stumbled backward, shielding his eyes. What is that?" Lyara didn't answer. She was staring up at it, frozen, trembling, eyes wide in disbelief. The voice returned, echoing from everywhere and nowhere at once. You were never meant to wake the core, my daughter. Ray blinked. Daughter? He looked at her sharply. Lyara, what is that thing talking about? Liara's lips trembled. Her voice was barely a whisper. I know that voice. I would know it anywhere. That's my mother. The air rippled. From the base of the massive ship, a figure began to descend. Tall, wrapped in light, her form human-like but impossibly graceful. Her eyes were silver, her movements smooth like flowing water. When she touched the ground, the light around her dimmed slightly, revealing a face that mirrored Liara's. Older, colder, perfect. Mother, Lyara breathed. You're supposed to be dead. The figure smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. Death does not exist within the core. I was chosen, preserved to ensure the bloodline would never be corrupted by weakness. Ray stepped forward, his voice tight. Weakness? You call saving your daughter weakness? The Queen's gaze flicked to him. And you must be the human contaminant. Ray clenched his fists. Contaminant? Lady, I dragged your kid out of a burning ship. You're welcome. Liara's mother regarded him with detached calm, like one might regard an insect that spoke. You touched her. You bonded with her. You've altered her genetic resonance. That cannot be undone. Lyara took a step forward. He saved me. He saved us. Without him, I'd be dead. Without him, the core would have destroyed everything. Her mother's voice deepened, resonant and sharp. And that is precisely the problem, child. The sea or listens to you because of him, and humans cannot be trusted. The sky rumbled again, the enormous ship above beginning to spin slowly, its edges glowing like a halo. The ground beneath them vibrated as though the planet itself bowed to the Queen's will. Ray frowned. Yeah, you're definitely her mom. Lyara's hand shot up. Ray, stop! But it was too late. The Queen's eyes flared with light. Ray was thrown back by an invisible force, his body slamming against the ground with a crack. Ray! Lyara screamed, rushing to him. He groaned, trying to sit up. His body ached, his vision blurred. The Queen spoke again, softly now, almost with sorrow. Do you see? His presence disrupts the balance. The core exists to protect our kind from the chaos of humanity. They build, destroy, and claim its mercy. They do not belong among stars. Lyara turned to her, tears burning in her eyes. Then maybe you never understood what mercy really is. The Queen raised her hand, and the glowing constructs, the ghostly soldiers of the first ones, began to form again around her. Their eyes burned blue, their weapons of light humming to life. Ray forced himself up, his arms shaking as he aimed his pistol. Guess round 2 starts early. Lyara stood beside him, her hands glowing. No. This time, we fight together. The first blast hit the ground near them, a beam of blue energy that turned stone to glass. Ray dove left, firing at the constructs. The bullets passed through their bodies, useless. Lyara clenched her fists, her own energy flaring out like a wave, shattering 2 of the figures instantly. Her mother's voice echoed above the storm. Stop this foolishness! You are my daughter! You carry the blood of the stars! Liara's eyes blazed with fury. And you carry the arrogance that killed our people. The ground erupted as the Queen descended again, her light form solidifying. As she and Lyara collided mid-air, a blinding explosion of energy shaking the valley. Ray covered his face, shouting her name, but the sound drowned in thunder. The 2 figures clashed in the air. one of light, one of life. Each strike shattered the air around them, each impact sending shockwaves that split the ruins further apart. Ray watched, helpless, until he noticed something. The core's energy readings on his wrist device were spiking again. The fight between mother and daughter was destabilizing it.
"Lyara!"
he shouted through the storm.
"If this keeps up, the whole moon's gonna blow!"
She turned briefly, and in that instant, her mother struck her across the chest with a blast of energy. Lyara screamed, falling back toward the ground. Ray ran forward and caught her just before she hit.
Hey, look at me,"
he said, his voice breaking.
"You're okay."
She coughed, blood glinting silver in the light.
"Ray, it's inside her now. The core's linked to her consciousness. If she keeps fighting, it'll destroy everything."
Ray looked up. The Queen hovered above, watching them, her expression unreadable.
"Then we end it,"
Ray muttered.
He helped Lyara stand. "You can break the link, right?"
She nodded weakly.
"But I'll need a stabilizer, something alive, something to ground the core's energy."
He didn't hesitate.
"Use me."
Liara's eyes widened.
"No, it'll kill you."
He smiled faintly.
"Then make it count."
Before she could protest, he pressed her hand to his chest. The blue light surged between them, threads of energy wrapping around their bodies. The core began to hum louder. Not angry this time, but aware. The Queen looked down, her calm cracking.
"What are you doing?"
Ray shouted.
"Finishing what you started."
The ground split open again, light pouring upward as the core connected to both of them. Liara's and Ray's voices merged into one, echoing across the valley. "Release protocol. Rebirth." The Queen screamed.
"No."
The light exploded, engulfing the ruins, the storm, the ship, everything. For a moment, the entire moon became a sun. Then silence. When the light faded, the storm was gone. The ship vanished. The ruins were quiet. Ray lay on the ground, breathing weakly. His skin still glowed faintly with blue veins. Beside him, Lyara stirred, her hand reaching toward his.
"Ray."
He smiled, his voice hoarse.
"Told you I'd stick around."
She looked around. The sky above was now clear, full of stars. The core's light shimmered gently beneath the surface, no longer violent, but calm, alive. The Queen's voice returned one last time, faint and fading like a memory.
"You've changed the code. My daughter, you've done what I could not."
Liara's eyes softened.
"Goodbye, Mother."
And the light was gone. Hours later, the two sat by the remnants of their small fire, under a sky now alive with calm, drifting starlight. Ray leaned back, exhausted. "So, what now? We saved the universe, killed a god, woke another one. Pretty busy day." Lyara smiled softly, for once without arrogance. "Now, we rebuild. Together." Ray smirked. "Together, huh? Even for a filthy human?" She laughed quietly. "Especially for one." They looked at the stars. Two survivors from different worlds, now bound by something older than both. And somewhere deep beneath the moon's surface, the core pulsed once, slow, steady, peaceful, almost alive. The galaxy would remember the day the heir of the first and the human who defied destiny rewrote the code of the stars. Forever.